Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first podcast of Mindful Mondays, Facilitated Ascent. For me, this is a very exciting time personally in my life. This is a huge milestone. It's something that me and the team have been discussing for a few years now. I don't know what it is, but we finally were able to put it together. We're very excited to have you all here. There's a lot of you who know who I am, and there's a lot of you who don't know who I am. So I'm going to start off by introducing myself a little bit, and we're going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing. And again, this is the first one, so we are working really hard at not being perfect. That is what we are going to accomplish. If we can accomplish not being perfect and making some mistakes, then I am grateful that we're in a good spot. So I hope you follow suit and not try to be perfect. Don't be shy. For those of you who are calling in online, we'd love to see you. You can turn off your videos. That's not a requirement, it's just a request. I do believe that it'll get you more involved and feel more a part of if you're able to. And that's why I turned my video on. Just to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Alan Nemtzov. I'm a registered nurse, been working in psychiatry for 15 years, currently working at a psychiatric emergency room, as well as a published author and a certified health coach. More importantly than my credentials is really what brought me here today in general. Over 20 years ago, I was 312 pounds. And I had failed multiple times at losing weight. I tried every single diet out there. No, we didn't have shots then, but they did have bariatric surgery. And I was taking 9 anti-diabetic medications. I was really not a happy individual. I had no idea at the time what a terrible effect my obesity was having on the people around me and the people that I loved. I knew to a certain extent what it was doing to me physically. Obviously, that was pretty obvious. Nonetheless, I didn't know what other effects it was having in my relationships, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my friends, my relationship at work. I just kept hitting a wall, not literally, but emotionally speaking. And life was really not going very well for me. And then by some miracle in 2004, I found a weight loss program that taught me how to lose my weight. And I followed exactly what they said. And I lost over 100 pounds in 2004. And I thought that would make me real happy. And obviously, to a certain level, it did. I remember looking in the mirror and I had what they call body dysmorphia. I couldn't relate what I was seeing in the mirror. There was this head and this face, which was mine, and then this body that I couldn't connect to because I was 43 years old at the time, and I think 43, and yes, and at the time, and I'd been with myself for 43 years. However, what I was seeing in the mirror was not the same self that I was used to looking at. And it was really an awkward time for me, a very difficult time, a transitional period in my life. And I realized that I needed to learn how to keep my weight off. And I went on what I considered to be a pivotal moment in my life where I started this journey, even though I had started it before, but successfully started this journey of doing research on how to keep my weight off. What I discovered at that time was not so much about the weight. That was a nice added symptom and an added benefit, I should say, that occurred. I have kept my weight off for over 20 years, which is truly a miracle. I would not have believed saying this 20 years ago. But what I did recognize over time is that my relationships, my interactions with other people also benefited not just from my weight loss, more importantly, that the work that I did on how to keep my weight off. And about 6 years ago, I decided that I can help other people keep their weight off, not teach them how to lose weight, but how to keep their weight off. And I created this program teaching people how to keep their weight off. And it evolved to helping individuals not just with keeping their weight off, but more about the deeper things of why people overeat in the first place. Getting into the reasons of what is behind an individual to harm themselves, to self-sabotage. And it has evolved in the last 5 years. I have learned so much, coming up actually 6 years now. 2019, I started this journey, this part of my life, using my education, using my experience working in psychiatry, and using also my experience in what I learned for myself to keep my weight off. And I want to take you back to something very interesting, that my first job after graduating nursing, I was working, for those of you who are familiar with Bellevue Hospital. And Bellevue Hospital is 1/3 psychiatric hospital. It has, I believe, about 900 beds. It's a 1,200 bed hospital, but there are about 900 active beds pretty much at any time. 300 of those beds are psychiatric beds. They have over 20 psychiatric units. When I was there, I'm going back to 2010, I was hired to work in the forensic psychiatric unit. That was a very interesting, I'll leave it at that, it was very interesting position. I was working with the criminally insane, not something that I had ever anticipated to do, not something that I was really trained in at all. It was definitely OJT, on-job training. I really learned about dealing with the criminals and the criminally insane. They weren't criminals to me, they were patients. Nonetheless, a lot of them were very famous people, stuff that was in the New York Post, in the local newspapers. All those famous people would come to us for psychological evaluations. It was a very interesting experience, I have to say the least. I didn't typically enjoy it. I learned a lot, and they told me there that if you can make it over here, you can make it anywhere. And it really changed my life in multiple ways to deal with individuals who have really didn't know what they were doing. A lot of them did, got themselves into horrible situations that really messed up their lives for life. Some of them got life. Some of them had murdered people. There was a whole list of a whole variety of individual there. Not all of them were murderers. Others had done some misdemeanors, a little bit of stealing, a little bit of violence. And a lot of them had come from really broken homes, and they had some psychiatric mental illnesses, schizophrenia, bipolar, untreated illnesses that caused them to get into trouble. A lot of the stories there were very sad, but it did teach me a lot. But I want to take you back to the orientation, that anytime an individual gets I know that's the way it works in the medical field. I'm assuming it also works in any job. When you go to work for a job, they have an orientation where they show you around. They teach you what to do over here, how things run in our place. Because we're working with our licenses, me being licensed registered nurse, it's imperative that you understand the policies and the protocols of the facility that you work in order to protect your license, that you don't want to get into trouble. You don't want to, God forbid, lose your license for your working. And there was an individual there who spoke, and I don't remember his entire speech. And I was absolutely mesmerized by this individual. He'd been working in Bellevue, I don't know how many years at the time, but quite a long time, a couple of decades he had been working there, a good 20, maybe 30 years. And the main topic that I want to talk about, the main point of his speech, because I'll never forget that, it was absolutely fascinating. And he said that and he was not a clinician. He was not a professional in the sense of, he wasn't a therapist, he wasn't a doctor, he wasn't a nurse, he wasn't a psychologist. He was just an employee. And over the years, he learned about how to interact with people. And it was absolutely fascinating. And he said, the hardest thing about life is cohabitation. Cohabitation means sharing this universe, sharing this planet with other people, getting along with other people. That was his main point of his speech that I remember. I'm sure there were other things as well, but that's what I heard. And he said it's the most difficult thing, cohabitation. And I had just lost my weight, not just lost my weight, but I was at the beginning of early on in my recovery. It was only 6 years I'd kept my weight off by then. It was still very new for me. It was very interesting. It was the first time I was in any type of corporate America type of position. Before that, I had done other things. I was a butcher. I had done other types of work, but I never really worked in this type of environment. And it's New York, which is extremely diverse. The individuals that I'm working with are very different than what I'm used to. What I was brought up in Toronto. I'm just a nice little Jewish white guy from Toronto. I wasn't used to this whole New York thing and a lot of people from the street. And it definitely was a culture shock for me. And to be able to navigate through, I do believe that if it wouldn't have been for my own personal recovery that I had started 6 or 8 years earlier, I don't know how well I would have navigated through that. He spoke about cohabitation, about getting along with other individuals. That's the topic tonight, relationships. We're going to talk about relationships. We are going to open it up in a little while for Q&A, for your point of view, your questions. We want to get it as an interactive type of podcast. And we'd love to hear what you have to say when we get to it. When I finish my little spiel over here, I do want to talk about a little bit about relationships because that's what tonight's topic is about. There are many different types of relationships. Obviously, when a person hears relationships, the first thing that comes to mind is a spouse. And no question about it that a spousal relationship or a partner, I'm trying to be politically correct in today's society, where we call it a partner, is a very unique type of relationship, different than any other type of relationship. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but I also want to talk a little bit about the other types of relationships, because there are many different types of relationships. There are relationships between a parent and a child. Now, even in parent and child, there is parent and child when the child is below age, when they're underage, they're under legal age, when they are still the responsibility of their parents. So that is one type of relationship. There's another type of relationship between parents and children. Once the child reaches 18, what they call being emancipated, now they're legally on their own. There's a lot of ramifications and there's volumes and rivers of ink that talk about the differences of the children when they get to this age. Something that we teach a lot in our programs, we get into this, it's very different, the relationship with parents and children. And primarily here, we're not going to speak so much about parenting. Maybe it'll be a topic down the road, but we're not going to talk so much about the relationships with parents and children for children under the age of 18 that you, as if you are a parent, that you are responsible for. Not that you can't take anything that we're talking about tonight and utilize it. I do believe you will be able to. Nonetheless, that's not going to be the focus. The focus that we're going to deal with is adult to adult relationships. So again, parents and children, it works both ways. Either you're a parent and you have adult children, in other words, you have children that are over the age of 18, they may already be married, or they may still be living in your home, or you as a child to your parents, maybe you have elderly parents, or you have parents who are older, maybe around my age, who you are over the age of 18, so you are already an adult, and your relationship with your parents. There's relationships with siblings, and there's relationships with neighbors, there's relationships with coworkers, there's relationships with extended family. So family in general is a very large word, but there is extended family, which obviously is a little bit different than closer family. A sibling is different than a in-law, a brother-in-law or a sister-in-law, extended family, nephews and nieces, cousins. All of this is another type of relationship. And there's two basic, I broke it down into two categories of relationships, and hopefully this will be helpful. There are forced relationships and there are chosen relationships. Forced relationships and chosen relationships. And that's really important thing to recognize when you're talking about relationships, because a forced relationship is dealt with differently than a chosen relationship. What's the difference between a forced relationship and a chosen relationship? Your children that you have, your parent that you have, your siblings that you have, your family in general that you have, not the spouse, are all forced relationships. In other words, nobody asked you permission. Nobody asks you consent. Nobody asks you your opinion if you would like to be related to this person. Yes, you decided to have children, but you didn't choose who your children are. That was chosen by, my belief is chosen by God, right? That's not something that you could actually choose. It's not like you went to the store and you got to pick and choose which child. Let's see, I would like to have this characteristic. I would like to have this talent. I would like to have this gender. No, we don't get to choose anything. That's a forced relationship. Family members are forced relationships. Now, there's some of them that are in between forced relationships and chosen relationships. For instance, neighbors. Neighbors are, in a certain level, forced relationships. For instance, if you buy a house or you move into an apartment because somebody lives there or you like a certain community, and then all of a sudden, so you can say that's a chosen relationship. In other words, I chose to live in that neighborhood. That is true. However, let's say soon after that you move in, somebody moves out and somebody else moves in. Now that's a forced relationship. You didn't choose that individual. When you go to a store, you choose to go shopping in that store. You don't get to choose who the workers are. However, if, let's say, I usually use a grocery store because a lot of that, I don't know, I just use that as an example. If there are different cashiers, now we have self-checkout. So when you go to checkout, if you have a difficult interaction with a certain cashier, if it's not a store that only has one checkout person, so now that can be a chosen relationship. You can go to self-checkout. You can go to another line, even though it's longer. But if you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason checking out with this cashier, so again, that's a chosen relationship, but it's also on a certain level a forced relationship because you are limited to who you're going to interact with that in that store. Now, people who come into the store and shop, those are forced relationships. Now, you could have a chosen relationship come into the store, right? You could have somebody that you decided that you wanted to live next to, and they came into the store. So again, it's a chosen relationship, but the situation is not a chosen situation. It's a forced relationship. They came into your space right there on that day. And maybe you're not at a place where you feel comfortable to interact with them. Those are interesting situations. And we're going to be talking about this universe. We are in this world, we're in this life that a lot of relationships are chosen. A lot of our relationships are forced. When you go work for somebody, and I'm going to add another component here, which I think will also be beneficial for you, that when you go to work somewhere, those are forced relationships. You are going for an agenda. In other words, you're not going to create friends. You're going for a job. You're going to work. When you go to work, there are forced relationships. You don't always get to choose your boss. Now, let's say you go for, well, again, choose not to work there. But once you choose a certain boss, they leave for what reason, and a new boss comes once again. Now, it's something very interesting about forced relationships and relationships, in other words, voluntary relationships. Coworkers are obviously forced relationships. There are certain relationships that you can do something about. You can leave your job if you're not happy. You can move away from your home if you are unhappy. There are things that you can do. Not always a great choice. I'm not saying that's what you're going to choose to do, but just to be aware that even in forced relationships, there is the ability to change that if you like. There are certain forced relationships that there's very little that you can do. You cannot, technically speaking, you can, but it's obviously not easy to change your relationships, your forced relationships with your children, with family. You can avoid them. You would need to detach with. Doesn't mean that you can't have choice relationships too, but forced relationships. Creating boundaries. I'm sure many of you have heard that term of creating boundaries. Those are mechanisms that you can use when you are dealing with a forced relationship. And then we're going to talk about the final relationship that most people think about when we talk about a relationship, and that's a spouse. A spouse's relationship is a chosen relationship. Now, a lot of us may disagree with that And I speak from personal experience from the clients that I with who couples, and I get couples who come to me, and I get individuals, not couples, but one of the times that come to me, who claim that their chosen relationship, their marriage, they felt like it was a forced relationship because they were very young. They relied on their elders, their parents, if it's through the parents, that they were set up, that the match took place, or if it's through some type of counselor, somebody or a guardian of the such. So a lot of people sometimes feel when they get into later on in life that their chosen relationship, which is a marriage, was actually a forced relationship because they don't think that they were in the right mindset, that they didn't understand everything about life. And how can you understand when you're 17 or 18 years old and you get into relationship, you get into a marriage because that is taught as the appropriate thing to do. And not to say anything, please don't misunderstand me. I'm, God forbid, not saying anything about that at all. I also got married very young, and I'm very grateful. I'm just talking about we're talking about the concept itself. I'm not taking sides, and I want you to understand that. I don't take sides. I'm not here to take sides. I'm not here to tell anybody what they're doing is wrong. I'm not here to tell anybody what they're doing is right. That is not what I'm doing. I'm not judging anybody. We're just talking about the concept, and hopefully you can take these concepts. And one thing I didn't mention at the beginning, and I apologize, that if there's something here that you don't agree with, that you cannot relate to, you will have the option to challenge me later in the Q&A, or you can just leave it. Don't worry about it. I am a human being. I'm expressing my personal perspectives about things from my training and from my experience. If there's something that you don't agree with, that's fine. As they say, take what you like, leave the rest. Don't fret it. These are opinions. These are not facts. Therefore, there's nothing to worry about if there's a part of this that you have a difference of opinion. That's great. And I would love to hear about it because that's how I learn. Like I said, I'm working really hard and I'm being sincere about not doing this perfectly. This is our first podcast and we're very excited. So let's get back to that. So there's some spouses, some married individuals who believe that their relationship with their spouse was forced, was not voluntary. And I can really understand it. And it happens a lot in life, not just with marriage, but in general with decisions, that a lot of times we make decisions in life. Getting married is a major decision in an individual's life. It's happened for a lot of people, it happens at a very vulnerable time, just transitioning from adolescence to young adulthood, which in psychology, we are taught that is the most challenging time in an individual's life. In fact, because I've been working in psychiatry, I can tell you that is where most, not all, most of the mental illnesses come out, is during that transition time between 15 and 25, and now they say 15 and 30, is that transitional time period. I believe that it's because it's such a scary time in an individual's life that they are starting to grow maturely. They're going on their own. They're becoming their own adult, that it is separating from their parents' home, their parents' upbringing, and now they're becoming adults. A lot of times that added stress that is in an individual's life is what brings out and exacerbates and triggers, I should say, not just exacerbates, but it can be exacerbates. In other words, there's already a predisposition. In other words, they were already born with the ailment. They were born with the mental illness, but it doesn't actually appear until that age. And that's a very common age, something that we call in psychiatry a first breakthrough. Very common. Young 20-year-olds have a first breakthrough, and there's no gender discrepancy about that. It can happen with a male, it can happen with a female. Some people, there's a lot of people now who smoke marijuana for many different reasons. A lot of people do it for medical reasons. And we've had couples who have smoked together marijuana for various reasons. And one of them, it triggered their mental illness, and the other one was fine. And it couldn't be the substance because they were both using the same substance. So there are things that can trigger that age if you have a predisposition at a young age. So if a person's getting married at that age, a very vulnerable time in an individual's life, a transitional period. Later on, as they get older, 20 years later, 15 years later, 30 years later, they turn around, they ask themselves, oh, this was a forced situation. This was a forced relationship. So you see that some of them are not so clear cut. What is a forced relationship and what is a chosen relationship? Chosen relationships, obviously, are much easier for us to deal with in general because it was your choice. If it was your choice, then you have the power to choose differently. Not always an easy choice, because even in a marriage, there always is a choice. There's a separation, there's divorce, and not always a easy decision to make, especially if there's children involved. Sometimes it is a good decision, sometimes not. Again, I never, and I hope I never do, is recommend to somebody or put on the spot to recommend to somebody to either to get divorced or to get separated, unless it's very extreme where there is extreme physical abuse, not just emotional abuse, but physical abuse. Yes, that should be separation, not necessarily divorce, but definitely separation. I myself, in my 42 years of marriage, have been separated from my wife, I think 3 times. We went through a minor separation. I never forget how grateful I am, and I'm grateful every day that my wife at that time, even though I didn't deserve her, I was not emotionally stable husband, emotionally stable human being, even though I didn't think that at the time that I was a problem. I did believe I had problems, but I didn't really know enough to know what was going on. I'm so grateful that my wife chose to keep me because her mentor told her, you don't have to make a decision right now. And that really saved our marriage. And I'm so grateful today. I never forget that. The benefits that and the rewards that I've had from my wife, not making that emotional decision by a choice relationship, choosing to sever that relationship. She decided not to make that relationship a separation, a divorce at that time. I've unfortunately seen too many times where people choose to sever their relationships, chosen relationships, obviously, because you can't really sever forced relationships. They're always going to be there. Yes, it's uncomfortable when you get together, but a chosen relationships, they do it from an emotional state, from pride. I have definitely made that mistake over the years with different individuals and said something at the wrong time in a heated moment and regretting it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So again, just to give you the idea now for you to think about that there is a difference between a forced relationship and a chosen relationship. And I guess there's that third type that's like in between forced and chosen, which we spoke about. We're going to specifically talk about the couples relationship because I'm pretty certain that most people, when they hear relationships, that is what they understand. And that's what we think we're going to talk about. And we are going to talk about that. Experience has shown me, and there's 2 aspects, 2 relationships. We did speak about the forced and the chosen. Those are 2 aspects of types. But what we're going to talk about is the difference between inside of a relationship. There is 2 aspects to relationship. And this is really important. I want you to know that tonight, we're only going to be talking about one. And I was really thinking, which one should I talk about? Because a lot of people want to talk about the one that I'm talking about. And this is a 2-part series, by the way. We are going to meet again in 2 weeks, and we're going to have the similar setup. I'm assuming we'll learn from any mistakes that I've made. We'll have team meetings and see, or your feedback, find out what you liked and what you didn't like, and we'll make adjustments accordingly if necessary. There is a relationship with self, and there's a relationship with others. Even within forced and chosen relationships, if we break it down further, we all have 2 different types. We have relationship with self, relationship with others. Relationship with self, there is no chosen relationship there, right? You don't get to choose you. One of my coaches, he says a beautiful thing. He says, we get jealous of other people. He said, oh my gosh, I wish I was like that person. You can't be that person because that person is already taken. You can't be that person. You can only be you. But we're not going to get into, so I'm sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit. So we're going to talk about so there's 2 types, relationships with self and relationships with others. Now, the interesting thing is relationship with self. before I tell you which one we're going to focus on. Relationships with self is a very interesting, obviously a fourth relationship but it's a different relationship. And the reason is because it's forced in the sense that you can't separate yourself from yourself. Technically, God forbid you can. And I deal with a lot of those types of people, individuals who are suicidal, who come to our emergency room, that they're so depressed or so frustrated in life. And not all of it is their fault, that they've reached such a point where they just can't continue their relationship with themselves. Very sad, but a real part of life for a lot of people. It really humbles me when I think of these people, that I deal with them. I don't know how much I help them. I really don't. And I certainly don't judge them. And we try to stabilize them as best as we can. Those are the ones that come to the hospital. There's already some hope of people who come. I do know certain stories, unfortunately. I've seen too many suicides in my life. I don't mean the actual event, but too many people that I have known, both in my emergency room that I worked with in my professional, and also in my recovery work, of people that I have known that have committed suicide. It's a very selfish act because it harms more the people that are left than that individual. However, at that time when these people do it, they're obviously not doing it to be selfish. They're doing it because they're in so much pain, a pain that people who never reach that cannot really appreciate. So besides that part, not trying to be too morbid, just trying to be real, relationship with self. You're with yourself 24/7. You may not always be consciously aware of yourself. There are a lot of people who just float through life. They exist. They're not really focused. They're not really there. They're either in a lot of remorse. They're living in the past, and they're talking about, oh, I should have done this better, or I should have done that better, living with guilt. Then you have a lot of people who live with fear, and they're constantly living in the future. What is tomorrow going to be? Oh my gosh, if I do this, what am I going to do? And they have indecision. They're very indecisive about things because they don't know what the future is going to bring. And nobody knows what the future is going to bring. We as humans do not have that ability. We don't own the future. Nobody owns the future, but they have a belief that tomorrow is not going to be better than today. And either through trauma or challenging situations in their life, they live in fear. So even though they're living in a relationship with themselves, they're not really with themselves. They fail to create an identity for themselves. And that's relationship with self. And then, of course, there's relationship with others. And that's what we spoke about till then. So I was thinking, which one should we focus on tonight? Should we focus on relationship with self, relationship with others? Typically, when people come in, especially the couples that come to me and others, they all want to talk about relationship with others. It's so much easier to talk about relationships with others. So I decided for tonight, we're not going to talk about relationships with others. We're going to leave the relationship with self for 2 weeks from now in our next podcast. But for tonight's topic, we're going to talk about relationship with others. Every single couple that comes to me, and I don't have extensive experience with actual couples. I do have experience with the individual separately. And I've heard this, I don't know how many times. He or she doesn't understand me. They don't understand me. They come with this horrible belief that the other person understands them. And the other side gets defensive. What do you mean? Now again, you don't have to be honest with me. And I can definitely relate to this myself. And one of the things which was a huge eye-opener to answer this, which I'm going to get to in a minute, that the other person doesn't understand me. My belief is that if that person would understand me, I would be happy. I would be calm. I would have a better relationship. So in other words, the onus, the responsibility of bonding and improving the relationship is on who? You, the other person. It's on the other person. That's where resentments come in. That's where expectations come in. It's the other person. And I hear it time and again. And he doesn't understand. I'm here all day with the children. He comes home late. He stops in. He doesn't recognize what a hard day I had. And then he runs out. He goes to temple, he goes to daven, he goes to wherever he goes, or he goes to a meeting, or whatever it is that he's doing. And then after all, and I'm exhausted and I got to deal with the kids, with the children, he comes home. And then if it is this type of relationship, then the other spouse is, I'm out there breaking my back, making a living, or if I'm somebody who studies all day, I'm doing my thing, and this person doesn't appreciate what I'm doing, that I'm putting bread on the table, I'm doing this again. That's why I'm not talking about male or female, because there's obviously a lot of people where the wives work, where the female work, and the male sits and learns, or the husband is the one that goes to work and the wife is home with the children. Today, dynamics, there's many different types. So that's why I'm not talking about gender specifically. But the complaint is always that the other person is not working, is not understanding. And something that, as I'm thinking about all this stuff, came up with a little bit of a theory and understanding that I do believe human beings in general are good people. It is rare, I'm not saying it never happens, it is rare, and this even goes to tyrants and dictators. It is rare that a human being really believes that they are very wrong what they are doing, and they are there just unjustified harming another individual. Rarely will you see a human being who does that. It's just against human nature to do that. That does not mean to say that humans don't do horrible things. Yes, they do horrible things. However, they are justified. They will rationalize it. They will say, even suicide bombers, God forbid, no, they're fighting for a cause. So they're justified with their cause. Yes, I am harming other people. I'm killing babies and women. I'm killing innocent civilians. And I'm doing it for a reason. I'm doing it for God. I'm doing it for a purpose. They don't believe that they're doing a harm for the sake of doing a harm for individuals. It is rare. I have not come across an individual. There are people who steal. And I was one of those people. When I was younger, I lied, I stole, cheated. And I was doing it because my parents didn't give me money and I wanted a candy bar. So I was entitled. Again, at 6 years old, I wasn't thinking that I was taking away from the storekeeper's business, that I was stealing from them. People lie, people cheat, people give bad advice. We do a lot of these things because our pride, it's not that we want to, and that's the big word here, intentionally harm somebody. I have yet to have found a human being that intentionally wants to harm for the sake of harm, even psychopaths, which is a behavioral, what we call access to in psychology. It's something that medication does not help with, who don't comprehend this whole concept of relationships. They don't understand that there's another person. Even them, they have no remorse. It's because their mind is wired differently. They just don't get it. But those are extreme cases. But even in the average person, everybody, what they do, they believe that what they are doing right. I'm going to quote you something that I found. An American poet, I looked up about him, very interesting. Henry Longfellow, he lived in the early 1800s, and he went through his own tragedies. His first wife died from burning. Her dress caught on fire, and she died. He remarried, and one of his children also died. I don't know from what. And he wrote, if we could read the secret history of our enemies, we should find in each man's life sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility. I'm going to repeat that. It's a very profound line. And this comes, by the way, just where I found this. I'm not one who reads poetry. Not that it's a bad thing to read poetry. This is from the IFS system, the Internal Family System, by Dr. Schwartz, and he quotes this individual. If we could read the secret history of our enemy, we should find in each man's life sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility. So people come in, couples come in, they don't understand me. And when you're always having a confrontation that the other individual doesn't understand you, or the other individual is annoying, the other individual is mistreating you, if you would look into that individual's history, something that's very difficult to do at the crisis, at the moment of crisis, and we do talk about it. We're not going to talk about that here right now. Maybe we'll down the road. I'd love to hear from Q&As, and we'll get into that. I don't want to go on too long because I want to give you all an opportunity to voice your opinions about what we said, we would all of a sudden possibly look at our partner. I don't want to call them enemies. I know he uses the word enemy, but to me, enemy is just an enemy to my pride. It's an enemy for my sense of inner peace. So it is some sort of an enemy when somebody's blaming another individual. It is on a certain level an enemy. We don't want to use it to that level, but it is an enemy to my sense of whatever that is, that we would see the hurt. And like I said, I'm very grateful. I don't know if my wife really saw my hurt at the time, but she stuck with me. And the reason she stuck with me is because for some miracle, I guess when she threw me out, it was a big wake-up call for me to realize, hey, I got to get some help. Not everybody has to get to that level to get some help, but that's where I had to get to. And I went to rehab and started my journey and worked really hard. I really did. I'm not priding myself with it. I'm just saying that's why my wife kept me, because she saw that my sincerity, that I was really trying. It is challenging when the other individual is suffering because they have issues, not willing to look at themselves. There's no question that there is challenging times for that, and it is difficult. And hopefully those people will they'll come to coaches, maybe they'll come to me or whatever, to try to get that help. Nonetheless, if you would see that other side, you may change a little bit of your opinion about that other person and their behaviors. Major thing that I talk about when we do have couples is I ask them to write down the positive aspects and the negative aspects of their spouse, because there is no human being alive. There's nothing in this world that is only good. There's nothing in this world is only bad. I love one of our coaches gave a nice example of that. Water quenches us. It heals us. We wash ourselves with it. It's very therapeutic, but we can also drown in it. Fire cooks our food, warms our home. It's a great thing, but it can also burn your house down. God forbid is happening in Los Angeles. People are getting burned. Homes are being destroyed. Tremendous destruction. Everything has the ability to do good and to do bad, because that's just how the world was created. Every human being was created with good and with bad. And when somebody's angry at another individual, they will primarily focus on their negative traits. And those are glaring. And then if they do inner work, and start to look at them a little bit differently, like this poet stated, and see the sorrow in their eyes, they will start to look at them from a different place. And bonding can occur when that happens. So always tell them to look at the good and the bad, to notice both, because we every human being, there's not a lot of generalities, but that is a major generality, that a true one. Another book, and I'm going to leave you with this, and then we're going to open up for a Q&A, and I'm going to explain how that's going to work. Another book that I read probably 20 years too late is, I don't know if any of you have heard of it, and again, we're talking about relationships, marriage relationships, is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It was interesting. The same author tried to write another book about parenting, and it didn't work. It wasn't as profound. I guess that was his expertise. And he really explains this concept of the way females think and the way males think, that we come from two different planets and we think differently. I remember the first time that I tried to follow what he said, that when women complain, vent, whatever word you want to use, they're not looking for advice. They're looking for understanding. They're looking for acknowledgement. They don't want to be fixed. Men typically want to always fix things. That's who we are. That's what men are. So when you have one person to the other person complaining that they're not following the right thing, and they bring in their part of it, there's going to be conflict. I remember the first time that it happened, that my wife came to, whatever it was, I don't think it was anything major, whatever it was, she was venting or expressing her feelings about something. And I was about to respond, and I just bite my lip, and I didn't say a word. And she said what she said, and I don't even remember what it was. And then she just started talking about something else, and I was in shock. I had to bite my bottom lip not to laugh. I wasn't, God forbid, laughing at her. I was laughing how true, a real opener for just a few thoughts here that hopefully that that will help you for Q&A. The way it's going to work is that if you unmute people calling online, I would love to be Sean. Again, if you don't want to, I get it. But when you are speaking, it's easier to speak to somebody who's on camera. I understand sometimes you're not able to. And then for those of you who are not calling online, you can unmute. No, you are clear. Okay, excellent. It's periodic. I apologize. I apologize when I'm not that clear, but thank you for letting me know. For those of you who are online, you can text a message in the chat. I would prefer people to unmute and to speak. We will be taking the questions from those who unmute first. And then if there's time afterwards to take questions from the text messages, for those of you who are not online, there are people here, people are able to unmute themselves now. For those of you who are not online, you can text your messages in, but I just want you to know that if we run out of time, we're going to keep this for another hour. If need be, we need to go a little bit over, we will. We typically do 2 hours. So I can't guarantee you that the text message will be answered necessarily. You can text your message into 845-400-9466, but we will respond first to the people who unmute, either online unmute or unmute who are calling in. In order to get started, who would like to begin? Again, it's in the chat over here. You have your questions to 845-400-9466. Just an added thing, if you are interested, to find out a little bit more about me or what I do, Darren, if you could put the link on the chat, was sent by ktpo.com. That is our website. We have a free webinar. You're more than welcome to listen to it, just to find out about what we do. No obligations. You do have to sign in, but it's nothing. It's just in order to listen to the webinar. You can also reach out to the office there at that number if you want to find out. If you want to email us something that you would like to tell us, we're at info@ascentbyktpo.com. Again, info@ascentbyktpo.com. Again, those are both in the chat. Anybody would like to get us started with a question or a comment? Again, maybe there's something that you didn't like what I said, something that you did like, something that you like to share. You do not have to mention your name. You can keep it totally anonymous. If you want to just mention your first name, that's great. We're not trying to put anybody on the spot here, really not. We'd love to get some type of feedback or questions, or maybe you want to share some victories that you've had in this concept of relationships. And again, it doesn't just have to be about spousal relationships. It can be any type of relationships other than parents to young children. That is not going to be on the focus for tonight. So who would like to get us started? *6 to unmute if you're calling in online. I have to scroll down. Oh, I think the person who unmuted is going to get to the top of the list, so I will see them. Or if you're calling online, you can just unmute or raise your hand if you have a question or a comment. So we will wait for a moment. And who would like to begin? Who would like to start us off? Really? I was that clear? Wow. Questions? No comments? Can you talk about not to come across like a parent to your spouse? Wow. Wow, that is a great question. Talk about not coming across like a parent to your spouse. I like that question. Yes, I absolutely will. That is a really great question, because I'm going to add that into, no, not necessarily, maybe. I'm just going to take notes for myself. I'm also taking notes. I hope you guys are taking notes. I take notes. So I'm going to add this into next week's talk, in 2 weeks, not to come across like a parent to a spouse. Boy, you touched a raw nerve there. That is a great question. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for vulnerability. And that is a great question. So let's talk about that for a minute. Not to come across like a parent to a spouse. I like that. Okay. I do things. Oh, 1 second. Oh, so number 2. Okay, I'm going to get to you in a minute. Okay. I get triggered by the same. This is one again. I have another question there. We're going to take the first question first. Not to come across like a parent to a spouse. It really is, that topic really is more on next week's. I know it doesn't sound like it, but that's going to be in our next podcast. And that's why I wrote it down as myself, a note for myself, because I am going to put that down to talk about it a little bit more in 2 weeks from now. Again, we're talking about a spouse is a chosen relationship. And every human being, and we touched on this a little bit, and hopefully this will help you a little. Every human being, everyone, every creature on this planet, everything that is in the universe has a positive side and has a negative side. Every single one. Cohabitation is difficult. Like that individual who was giving us orientation, like I spoke about when my first nursing job. The challenge of cohabitation is that another human being, two completely separate humans, and come from different agendas. Yes, we obviously choose people within our own culture, with our own religion. We obviously want to try to have a bonding, have a cohabitation with people who are on the same page. Because if people are not on the same page, obviously that's thinking alike. So it's having the problem with my own Q&As also. Okay, good. So we live together. Maybe I'm going to turn my video off. Maybe it'll be easier. I think maybe with the video on is causing a little bit of a problem. We try to choose individuals that we have similar views on. Again, our religious views, our Jewish philosophy views, our views about having children, raising children. When we're on the same agenda, obviously it makes it that much easier for us to cohabitate, because those are the people that you want to connect to. You want to be married to somebody who thinks alike. Nonetheless, even in that field, some people are brought up with little nuances, a little different thing. My parents were English. My wife's parents were New York Americans. Actually, one of them is European, but English very proper and very specific about how things go, same upbringing. To that, again, it's not that we had different views about important things, but things that were not as important, we had different views on, and we had to bond. I am certain that even till today, and this is something that hopefully will help you, I am certain that till today, I do things that annoy my wife. I'm 100% certain. I really am. I'm a human being. I am not perfect. I'm not changing. I'm not doing it intentionally to annoy her, but there are certain things that I do. There are things that my wife does that annoys me. Absolutely. However, what a relationship is, and this is really important, what a relationship is not to ignore or not to notice the things that the other person does that are annoying or that you don't agree with. However, it is primarily to focus on the things that brought you together in the first place. That does not mean to say that you have to agree with everything that the other person is doing. It doesn't mean that you can't change. When your spouse is doing something, they leave the dishes in the sink. They don't flush the toilet after they finish. They leave their laundry on the floor. They don't make their bed. I'm just giving a few examples. I'm sure the person who asked the question could come up with certain things. And the belief is, what this question is based on, that if I show this other individual what they are doing wrong, they are going to change. That's the belief. What's the frustration? When they don't change. But I told you 10 times that this thing bothers me. I told you that when you do this such and such, it annoys me. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I forgot. Whatever the excuse is. What do you do with that? That's where we come up to the point of confrontation. That there needs to be confrontation. And that's what this person said. How can you talk about how not to come across like a parent to a spouse? There are 3 questions to ask yourself before you have that conversation with your spouse. 3 questions. And if you can answer all those 3 questions correctly, then go ahead and have the conversation. Question number 1. Does this thing need to be said? Not do I want to say it. Does it need to be said? Now, a lot of times it needs to be said. If the person is constantly leaving their stuff on the floor and therefore they're messing up the house and they're teaching their children. And again, I'm not saying it's a male to a female to male. It can be either way. Okay, yes, it needs to be said. So if you can answer yes, okay. Does it need to be said now? Rarely, it needs to be said now. It can need to be said. Rarely it needs to be said now, unless there's preparation, which I'm going to get to in a minute. Does it need to be said by me? Again, Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said now? And does it need to be said by me? Sometimes things need to be said and they need to be said now, but I may not be that person who needs to say it. Now, if you can answer yes to all those questions, then by all means, now you can confront your spouse and talk to them about it. Now, when you are having that conversation with them and you decided that a conversation needs to take place, so maybe not right this second when I'm emotional, and you can sit and have a conversation. And there's ways to work that out. And you can come across, and when you have that conversation, the most important thing to do, and it's not always easy, but the most important thing to do is to speak about yourself. It hurts me. I'm very sensitive when my house is not clean. I'm very sensitive when you leave the dishes out. I would appreciate if you would be cognizant of my feelings and try to be more careful with that. It's very different than saying, can you stop doing that? Don't you see what you're doing? It's so wrong. Then you're not coming across as a parent. Then what you're doing is you're respecting the other person. Does that mean they're going to change? No, it doesn't. Now, if it continues a couple of days later and it still continues and it's irking you, right? It's annoying you. You can have another conversation. We're going to speak about in 2 weeks when we talk about relationship with self. We're going to find out why it's bothering you. That's a deeper conversation that we're not going to talk about today because we said today we're only going to talk about relationships with others. We're not going to talk about relationships with self. But a very helpful thing is to ask yourself, why is this bothering me? Why is this annoying me? Something that we'll talk about in the second part of this. One more thing that if you can't go through the 3 questions, a very quick question that I learned about in my early days in recovery. I would love to say that I am perfect at it and I do it all the time and I'm great and I'm successful. That would be an utter lie. That is just not true. How important is it? In the scheme of things, how important is it that I tell this person about this and that they change? How important is it? When you can answer those questions, I do believe that you will find that this problem that you have about not to come across like a parent will change. If you talk about yourself, I am sensitive. It bothers me. What's somebody going to say? It doesn't bother you? You're not sensitive? No, you're being vulnerable. I am sensitive. Not just say, I don't like when you do this. That's a little bit more offensive and aggressive. Just express your feelings. When you do that and you talk about your feelings, you will not come across a parent. Is it easy? No. Is it simple? Oh, absolutely. It's just not always easy to do. So hopefully that helps you. 1 second. Got some helpful. The I instead of you. Thank you. You're welcome. And then somebody else who I said, why do I get triggered by the same sisters-in-law again and again? Why do I end up getting worked up? Yes. We're going to focus more on that next week. I'm going to write down this question. When I say next week, in 2 weeks. Why do I get annoyed by certain sisters-in-law? And again, it comes to the same thing, that there's a belief there that I need them, whoever they are, those sisters-in-laws of yours, to act a certain way. I know it doesn't seem that way because we're talking about relationship with others, but when you have a problem with a certain individual, there's something that individual is doing that is triggering something in you. And that's important. That's something that we can work on and we can talk about. I know that's not a complete answer for you, but it is a beginning for you to just to think about in the next 2 weeks. What is it in you that you are getting triggered by? What is their behavior that you don't like, that you don't feel comfortable with, that is triggering you? There's something there that it could be some unresolved trauma. It can be multiple things, and we can look at it more. But again, I know it's relationship with others, but that's really the answer to that, is really relationship with self. Okay? I know I didn't answer completely, but that's because it's about that.
Hi. I wanted to ask, what is the best way to, you have an adult child who right now is decided that they don't want to have a relationship with you, just only about technical things. So they'll contact you to ask you certain questions, but there's no emotion there, there's no readings. The question is, that's a relationship, and my question is, from my side, I want to have that normal, warm, loving relationship, but I hesitate. Let's say if the child sends an email and I answer the question, and so I'll answer the question, and then maybe I'll put in another line saying it should be with Hatzlacha or whatever it is, and then the child doesn't like that. My question is, what should I do? Should I do, let's say I want to say Good Shabbos, so I'll send a message before Shabbos, and I don't think he's appreciating these gestures, small little ones. But my question is, what should I do? I'll do whatever is the right thing. You hear
the question, yes, that it is a difficult thing in a relationship with others when it's one side, and especially from a parent to a child, that a parent is yearning to have a relationship with the child, and for whatever reason at that time, and they're already adult children, that they are refusing, hesitating, resisting to have that relationship. Now, if is not a question to you, I'm just stating, if you really love the individual, which I'm assuming you do, which it sounds like you do, but if you really love the individual, then the best thing that you can do is respect their wishes. So if their wish is right now that they want to be, that they do not want to have an emotional relationship with their mother, that is their choice. That is their decision. Something that I know as myself, as being brought up by English parents, by old school, that was not allowed. What do you mean? What do you mean you don't listen to your parents? Or what do you mean you're not connected to your parents and so on? I'm not saying listening, but you're not having. How dare you, right? However, in today's society, they realize that it really doesn't work like that. That children have an option. They have a choice not to feel emotionally connected to their parent. If the parent really loves the child, they will respect their wishes. If their wish is to not speak to them emotionally, then you are harming them to satisfy your own desires.
Is it okay if I say something?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that I'm not doing it to satisfy my own desires. You could correct me if you think that's not true, but I don't feel I'm doing this for myself. I thought that maybe it was good that I show the child that even though you feel that way, I want you to know that this is why I was asking the question, that I love you, I'm here for you, I'm supporting you. I'm not going overboard, just like a good Shabbos before Shabbos. That really was my intention. Like they say, just the reminder that Mommy's here and I love you and I'm here. Right. But if it's okay, if you're saying it's not gonna harm, I'm not helping him to heal by doing that, and I'm helping him to heal by respecting his wishes. He's doing that. I should do. Then I'm okay with that.
So I'll repeat myself.
I just want to know what is
right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll repeat myself. I hear you, and I'm not disputing that you're doing it for that reason or not. It's not that important in the answer to recognize what the intent is. The bottom line is, if you are here to help your child, and again, it's an adult child, we're not talking about a minor, the best way to show them that you are there is to support them what they want. And if they don't feel comfortable with you adding those things, then you are showing them that you are not respecting their wishes. By you respecting their wishes to the best of your ability, as difficult as it may be, then you have a greater chance of them coming back emotionally to you once they get through whatever it is that is bothering them. So again, I had an adult child who didn't speak to us for 3 years. I'm not getting into specifics because it doesn't matter. And one day she showed up at our door and I spoke to her as if I had spoken to her yesterday. I didn't say, oh, wow, thank you for coming. It's so good to see you. I missed you. No, I never, ever, till today, mentioned it. And we have a great relationship. This is, I don't know, it's got to be 3-4 years later. 3 years. Was it painful that she refused to talk to us? Absolutely. Very painful. But that was her wishes. By us respecting them, and we had no idea if she was going to come back or not. But for whatever reason, she needed her space. And because we respected her wishes, I believe that was a way that she got back. Not in my time. I would have loved for her never to leave emotionally, I'm talking about, and I would love to connect with her. And it's very painful when there's somebody that you care about, and doesn't even have to be a family member. It can be another type of relationship that you care about, and that they don't want it, and you want to have that relationship with you. The best thing that you can do, the best for your child's betterment and for your relationship, is to just support what they want. It's not a guarantee that if you do that, they're going to get better. It's not a guarantee that if you do that, they're going to come back to you. By you doing that is really the way to show them that you love them and care about them.
Yes, but how do I know? Okay, so I'll leave out the, let's say, the good wishes if he tells me something, and then, but how do I know? In the past, maybe he would want me to tell him certain information. Like a different sibling is coming in to America to visit, and he would want to know they're here. Just forget about that. He'll find out all this, whatever he needs to know,
So,
a different way.
If you have,
from me.
right. So if you have you'll find out. If you have a relative coming in, let's say you have another child coming into town, you can send them a message, and you can ask him or her, I'm not sure if you want me to notify you. I'm letting you know that so-and-so is coming. If you wish not to receive these notifications, let me know. And that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
And what if, okay, thank you. And one more thing about this. What about now, through someone else, he was given advice that it's possibly a good idea for the parents, myself, my husband, and him, to go to a family therapy type of a thing. I don't know. We're not sure whether what is the, we're happy to do if it will help, but my husband and I are a little confused. He's angry at us for something, but we can't. There's nothing here like we're in a relationship where we have to fix and be better and change this and don't say this and do that and pick up the laundry. And I don't know. We're just confused about
exactly. And that's why going to a therapy session or some type of counseling or whatever is beneficial, because you want to go there to hear. A lot of times it's easier for people to express their frustration and anger with a mediator, with a third party that's not involved. It's going to hear what this individual, what your son or daughter is feeling. Again, when you go, if you do that, then again, you got to go with the right mindset that you're not there to baby them, to fix them, to tell them to get defensive. You're there to listen. And if something that they say, they may be right, and it's painful to hear. They may be right, something that you didn't realize. Obviously, something is amiss here. And if they're willing to have a line of communication, that's a blessing. However it is, however minimal, whatever it is, the worst thing that a human being can do to another human being other than physically torture them or kill them is to emotionally avoid them. So if they're not emotionally avoiding and they're still keeping an open line of communication, that's a gift. That's a blessing. Go with it.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. 3-0, you had a question.
Hi.
Hi.
I have two relationship questions. I'll start with one. One is my good friend told me she's going on vacation, and then I asked her where she's going. She said, oh, my husband's taking care of it. A few days later, she calls me back, and I asked her, oh, well, where are you going? We live, let's say, in Brooklyn, so she's out of Brooklyn. So I got very taken aback that she's being so secretive about this. I didn't really understand what's the secret. So I called her a few hours later and I said, I feel a little hurt by this. I was like, what's the big deal to say? When I go away, I tell her where I'm going. So it's a big deal. It's a couple thing. We didn't tell our parents either. And I'm still feeling very, I don't know if the word is hurt or not trusted with some information that I don't think is so private. How to go on from this? How to go on with the relationship?
So this is a chosen relationship, and this chosen relationship decided that they are putting a limit or certain boundaries on their relationship with you. True?
Yes.
And you don't like it, do you? Because you believe that it's a reflection on your relationship. Now, if they are your friend and they're not telling you, and if you really care about them, you would respect their request. Sure.
So it's basically, I was thinking about it a lot. I think it's how she did it.
Doesn't matter. She originally didn't say anything to you. She wasn't upfront. I want you to know that I have something secretive going on, something private. Please don't ask me about it. Like that, right?
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But she didn't do that.
Yeah, like I'm going away for a few days and I can't say where I'm going. Like putting the
Right.
thing on me. Oh, I can't say where I'm going. Now,
Maybe she thought, maybe, I don't know. I'm not taking her side, not taking your side, because I'm only hearing one side of the conversation. Because of that, I cannot be the judge here. That's one thing that I used to do wrong, that I would judge something when I'm the judge, the jury, and the prosecutor, and the defendant is not here. The defendant's not here. Or maybe she is. I don't know if she's I don't know if she is or not. I mean, she could be. Technically, she could be, but nonetheless, she's not here. She's not telling me what's going on. Because of that, I can't respond to how she is. She, for whatever reason, didn't feel comfortable sharing with you what was going on. And maybe she didn't do it in the best way. But you believe, there's a belief here, that she did this personally against you. In other words, she didn't follow the unwritten laws of your relationship with her because you're always forthcoming. And now she's not forthcoming, correct?
yes.
Okay. And I am not judging you or criticizing you. I have been there. But the question is what you want to do with it now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. One thing that I needed to learn that took me a long time to learn, because it was something that really I recognized for the longest time, that I believe that when somebody does something to me that I don't like, which is what you're describing now, right? She did something that you don't like.
Right.
I believe that it was an intentional harm to me. Now, can you swear 100%? Are you certain 100% that the reason that she didn't do this, didn't tell you, was to push you away or to harm you?
No. In my brain, I know she did it because for whatever
No,
reason,
you don't
but
know.
I took
No, you don't know.
I don't. Okay.
Now, if I would get angry at you, right? If I would yell at you, I don't know who you are, but I'm just saying, if I get angry at you and yell at you, are you certain, even if I tell you that I'm angry at you, that the reason that I'm angry is because of something you did? Can you be certain that is true? Or I'll help you answer it. Or is it possible that there's something else frustrating going on in my life and I'm just venting my frustration? I'm taking it out on you. I'm projecting my frustration on you. Is that a possibility?
Yeah.
So, in other words, even after I tell you that I'm angry at you for what you did, there's no way you knowing for sure that that is true. Correct?
Yes.
So the same thing here. She chose not to tell you for whatever reason. That's her prerogative. Yes, true.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean for you, the best thing is to recognize that she's not doing it at harm for you. See, obviously, for some reason, and who knows, maybe her husband, and again, I have no idea. Maybe her husband says, listen, I want to go away with you, and you don't even know what it is. And I would really appreciate if you don't tell anybody. And you said, what? I can't even tell my best friend? And he said, no. And again, you don't even know what the whole situation is. Maybe it's a health situation. Who knows? So now she was put in a predicament. Uh-oh, my friend's going to think that I'm doing something to harm her. But my husband doesn't want me to say, okay. Is that a possibility?
She told me we decided not to tell anyone. I don't know what that means.
No, you don't. But again, is that a possibility?
Yes.
And maybe they spoke and she asked him, what should I do if my friend asks me? Because I know her. She's going to ask me because she tells me everything. He says, just tell her that we decided. Is that a possibility?
Yes.
Nothing to do with you, right? Can you respect her? Can you respect her decision? Do you really
Yeah.
like her? She's your friend?
Yeah.
So does she want to harm you?
No.
Okay. So she didn't. She made a decision to do something that you don't like. Is she allowed to? Is she an adult?
Yes.
Does that feel a little better?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Amazing.
Amazing. I have a whole list of people. Are you on our program?
No.
Oh, you're not in our program. I can't answer you right now because I have 6 people after you. If there's
Okay.
still time
Okay.
after that, by all means, you can ask the question or you can email it to us, info@ascent.com, and maybe we'll be able to answer you. But I just have a lot of people who are still in the queue. I want to give them an opportunity, but we'll be here in 2 weeks. You can ask in 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
My question to you is: you have an older daughter in the house, and you have a younger kid in the house, and
Who
how do
has? You have or I have?
no, I have
Oh,
my older
okay.
daughter in the house,
You have
and
an
I have
older
a
daughter in the
younger one in
house.
the house.
How old's
Okay,
your older daughter?
my older daughter is 5, and my younger one is 10. And when the two get on each other's back and nerves, and me as a mother who just really tries hard to improve the relationship with the two of them, it doesn't really help to intrude. What's the best way of handling it as far as getting the relationship better and not fighting like cats and dogs all the time? And me as a mother getting angry and getting upset and getting beaten up after that too.
It's a very good question. It's an excellent question.
Because when I intrude, I get snapped up. So I have to
Okay.
keep quiet, shut up my mouth, but I have to hear two people fighting like
1
cats and
minute.
dogs.
Okay. So, number one, is it your house?
Yeah.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Your 25-year-old daughter, are you responsible for her anymore?
Yeah, she still lives in the house.
That wasn't my question. Are you still responsible for her?
Responsible for her. Yes.
No, you're not. You
Okay,
finished.
fine.
You finished your obligation when she turned 18.
You're right.
So you're not responsible for her.
No.
That does not mean that you stopped being her mother, correct?
Correct.
You didn't stop being her mother, but you're not responsible for her. In other words, your relationship with her changed at 18, correct or not correct?
Correct.
Your 10-year-old, are you responsible for her?
Absolutely him.
Oh, him. Okay. Him. Okay. So you're responsible for him. You're not responsible for her. Correct?
Correct.
You, as the mother, have a responsibility in your home. It's your home, correct? To decide what type of environment you would like to have in your home, correct?
A calm environment.
I understand. I understand.
Fighting.
No, I'm saying you have the power and it's your home. In other words, if somebody comes into your home, a relationship that you are not responsible for, you have the right as a homeowner, right, to only allow certain types of behaviors in your home, true or not. Okay. Now, if a stranger would come in and start misbehaving, let's say you invite some guests over and somebody's misbehaving, you can pull them on the side and you say, I am very sorry, but in my home, we don't allow such behaviors. Either you can adhere to the rules of this home or you can leave. Correct? True. Same thing here. Your 25-year-old is somebody that you can have a conversation with an adult and say that I don't allow in my home arguing. Don't allow it. You cannot do it in this home. By saying that, you are not telling her that she's doing something wrong. You're not telling her to stop what she's doing because she's a horrible person. You are saying in this home, we don't allow this type of behavior. And I would appreciate if you would not do that here because we don't allow it. It's that simple. The simpler, the deeper it goes. However, you have to be very careful to also be that type of person. In other words, and I'm not saying you're doing it or not, I just want to explain, okay? That if you are having that type of relationship, let's say with another child or a spouse that's arguing, now you got a problem because now you told your child who's an adult that you don't allow certain behaviors and then you lied. You're sending a mixed message because you're not following, you're not practicing what you preach, in other words, correct? You got to think about this before you take action. To get involved, that's triangulation. One of the children you're responsible for, one of the children you're not responsible for, even though they're both your children. However, what they both can hear, what you are responsible for is the type of environment that you have in your home. And we don't allow that in our home. It's that simple. Try that. All right.
Thank you.
Make sense? I'm not saying that it's going to change on the moment, but I do hear your frustration.
My friend wanted to listen to this free class, but she missed it. She wanted to know if there's anywhere you can listen to, either online or your phone.
Right. So it is being recorded, and we will be posting it on our YouTube channel, and we will send out a notification. It may take about a week or so to complete the editing, pauses, and whatever it is. I don't know. I don't do the technical stuff, but yes, It will be posted on our YouTube channel, and everybody will
Right, but
receive.
where will you
Oh, we're going to send that.
where will you be sending notifications? I guess only to those
If
signed
somebody
up,
signed,
or
did she sign up? Did she send in the word mindful or no?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, she can email us info at sent by KTPO, or she can text us 845-400-9466. I'll repeat that. It's 845-400-9466. Tell her to text in and say, I missed, can you please put me on the email or text recipients to receive the information about the recording?
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Okay, so I was in a codependent relationship and it broke up already like a half a year ago. And I'm still dealing with very intense emotions like resentful and upset. And it's like literally like taking over my headspace. And I feel like it's hard for me to go about my daily life. I want to know how I can help with.
Okay, so you had a friend that was a codependent relationship, yes? And who broke it off?
The other party, the one that I was doing, and very much like basically helping her in every aspect of her life.
Okay. When did you become aware that it was codependent?
When she broke up with me,
Okay, and how long were you her friend?
about 2.5 years.
Okay. Can I ask you how old you are?
35.
Okay. Are you married? Do you have a family?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you had a friend, so that was a chosen relationship. And then you became aware that it was codependent when she broke off from it. Did she tell you that it was
Yes.
codependent? That's why when she broke
No, the
off?
other party. No, the other party is like mentally unhealthy. And I knew that I didn't know the extent of how bad it was, but I did know that she wasn't in a healthy place.
Okay. Can I be honest with you? If you were in this relationship the way you're not in a healthy place either, you are aware of that? Codependency, I don't know how much you know about it. Codependency comes from a place of insecurity. And until that is healed, you're going to struggle with these emotions. Have you gone for any help for that?
Yes. Yes, I'm going.
Oh, you're going now. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're here, but you're here asking a question.
Because it's still in the beginning stages, and while we're sifting through the whole story, the feelings keep on coming up, and it's very intense.
Yes, understandable. There is a grieving process that you are going through. And you're familiar with the 5
Yes.
stages of grieving? The first one is denial. The second one is anger. The third one is bargaining. The fourth one is depression. Last one is acceptance. I can repeat that if you want to write them down. Do you want to write them down? You would like me to repeat it? So it's the acronym DABDA, D-A-B-D-A, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Which stage do you believe you're in?
Anger.
I would say some anger and some denial.
Why denial?
Denial is because that question, based on the way you're asking the question, is proof that you still are not aware of what exactly is the problem here. And that's why you're having these
Why you don't think it's
emotions.
it's not a natural thing to have resentment feelings?
Again, that's the denial. In other words, you understand that there is a problem. Yes, it is natural to have emotions because the grieving process, the middle three, anger, bargaining, and depression, are all emotional feelings, are all emotional stages of grieving. However, grieving alone will not bring you to paradise. Bring it alone will not give you the relief that you are looking for. In my opinion, the only way to get to the relief is to get to the source of the codependency in the first place. Nothing to do with your friend.
But in the meantime, until it gets solved, how do I cope with strong
So
emotions?
if you want, you can go and listen to our webinar. We talk a lot about this. Our webinar. We have a webinar, a free webinar you can listen to.
What is it called?
You have to go online. You have internet access? So you can go online, ASCENT by KTP, or you can call into the hotline. You can reach out to our office and they will direct you. Tell them that you want to listen to the free webinar, 845-400-9466, and listen to the webinar and see if something is there that speaks to you, because there is some unresolved healing, unresolved grieving, unresolved trauma that is causing you this discomfort and these emotions. I want you to know, first of all, I validate your feelings and I acknowledge them, and they are real. And it's very, I don't want to use the word very, it's challenging when we have a chosen relationship that we lose against our will, which is what happened. There's a piece of us, a piece of our soul that was taken from us. It's no different than when somebody loses a loved one. However, it is not unrepairable. I want you to know there's hurt there. There's a scar on your soul. There's hurt there. But I do believe that is not the source of your difficulty. The relationship,
What do you feel is the source?
you got to do the work to find out. There's
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
happened either in your childhood or somewhere along the line in your upbringing that caused you to A, get into a codependency relationship, and B, to get affected by it.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, I came back to my computer. Somebody texted. What kind of relationship is that you need to know everything about the other person? I don't like this kind of perspective.
I could refer to her question because I had a friend that traced me everywhere. At one point, I picked, even if I spoken to her every day, I wouldn't tell her that I'm leaving at all. It wasn't me that texted, but I can understand there's some relationships that are not healthy.
1 second. Okay. So let me ask. So you,
Yes.
fine. We'll
So
take
I
your
had
question.
I had such an incident that I had to pick myself up and leave because if I would say that I'm going, you arrived, maybe you send me a pic of the room, maybe you send me when did you get it? It got to a point where you cut off, get going, and you don't have to announce anything. She was bad hurt. I didn't have any intention on that, but it never ends.
One minute. Let's step back for a moment. You had a friend, right? Is that the relationship? Is a friend?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a family friend. It was more than just a friend. I could say more than just a friend. She was a family and a friend, a cousin or whatever relative.
Okay, so extended family.
Yes.
Okay.
That I felt at one point that if I would tell her that I'm leaving, it would never finish there. Where are you? How's the place? She would call me and text me even if I'm out for 2 days. She always felt like I kept something secret from her. I can't explain. It was to a point that it was not healthy. And she was very hurt. At one point, I just didn't even tell her that I left. So I don't know. I just felt it wasn't healthy to keep a relationship where it's like punching into work. 9, 5, where were you? A day that I wasn't home. What? You were out today. Where were you? What did you get? I didn't feel I need to be obligated all my life to that. Maybe it was rude, but I just picked myself up at one point and I didn't say anything.
So what's your question? I'm not understanding.
You said you can't understand what the letter wrote. I could refer to it 100%. That's not called a relationship. If you have to, mamish give din chesm. It's like not a relationship.
So you're answering for this person?
Yes. I very much could refer to it because I lived it. I lived it, and that person did a ton of favors to me.
So
I had a not healthy child at one point, and she sent me pastries to my door. She mothered me, and I was obligated to her for the rest of my life.
So do you have a question?
No, I was suggesting you.
Okay, so
I just to let you know.
So, okay, I appreciate that.
I was referring to it. That I could understand what she meant. That is this called a friendship if I am obligated to tell her A, B, C, D all my life, what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm shopping. I think it's sometimes very unhealthy. You have to be able a little bit to. I could refer to her question. I was just answering out of experience.
Oh, okay. So your experience is that. Okay. No,
I think you should do it a little more politely than I did because I begged her with tears for forgiveness, even though I didn't feel that I was mean or whatever. But my husband made me do so. It was before Rosh Hashanah, and that's what I did.
Okay. So you separated from this individual who was overpowering.
I'm not separated. We still are in very good terms. I attend her every simcha, and we're good friends. But I definitely made it a little with boundaries. I set my own boundaries.
Okay. So that was healthy for you, correct?
Yeah. That was going back to the first person asking the question when her friend told her she's going on vacation. I almost relived it. I didn't even do that. I didn't call that I'm leaving. Oh, okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm really sweet. I'm just using a different phone because the other phone there's no service here.
So what's your real number? Last two
It
digits?
doesn't matter. It's both numbers are mine. I just want to say I'm the person that I asked about the vacation. It's not that I'm saying she had to tell me that she's going on vacation. She could have left. It's just the way she said it was painful. Just want to clarify with that person who was saying.
Oh, okay. Typically, we don't. It's fine. Typically, we don't do crosstalk. In other words, we don't give suggestions from one person to the other. I think you got your answer, correct?
I want to
What was
ask another question if it's okay.
Yes. What's your question? So you got your answer about this other individual who
Yeah.
who you didn't like the way she kept a secret.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Okay, go ahead.
Basically, I have a neighbor who constantly asks for favors 2 or 3 times a week, and would also knock on my door at let's say 11 o'clock at night. Let's say I would tell her no, I can't babysit. For
1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute.
I,
She knocks on your door at 11 o'clock at night. Yes,
yes.
and you answer the door.
I wasn't like in a pickle because she heard my voice. I
1
would have
minute.
ignored her, but
1 minute. You answer the door, right?
I basically asked who is it. I knew who it was. She said
Again,
whatever her name is.
again. You answered the door. Yes,
Yes, my problem.
that was your choice.
Right.
Okay,
So
go
I
on.
basically told her I can't. I felt forced to like tell her I am not. I can't come to I can't like open the door anymore at this point. And so I asked her, what do you need? She said, oh, forget it. Kind of things kept on happening, like knocking my door, asking for favors. Basically, my brain told me I can do it for her, but my emotions, it felt like abused already, over asking too much.
Okay.
I asked Rob what to do, and he said that I should write her a text, that Rob told me that I shouldn't do her any more favors because it was affecting my life. It was affecting my whole view on chesed. So that's what he told me to do. And I did it. And at this point, my problem is that I feel very awkward. She lives literally next door, and I feel very awkward.
So why don't you go back to your rub again? Why are you here?
So I asked him that, and he said, you feel awkward. You should just think like you're too yidden. Just tell her hello, whatever, as if everything is fine. She actually said, I'm sorry. She actually said, I'm sorry for doing all for her. She didn't realize she's abusing me, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
It just, on my part, I still feel awkward because
Okay. So what's your question? So what's your question?
How not to feel awkward.
You're feeling awkward for what reason?
Maybe because I feel like I wasn't nice to her. I wasn't nice with telling her off so strongly.
You feel that you made a mistake?
Maybe
I'm
yeah.
asking.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Are you a human being? Are you allowed to make a mistake?
Yes. Just it might hurt others.
I'm saying. It doesn't sound like you agree with that. We call that perfectionism.
Yeah.
Okay? That's something else. That has nothing to do with your friend. Do you know where perfectionism comes from?
It's a problem. I'm not sure exactly.
Perfectionism comes from a low self-esteem, which typically comes from unnurtured feelings in childhood. It happened to manifest itself with a neighbor, friend, whatever you want to call it, whoever this relationship is that you had with. But that is not the source of your problem, and therefore that cannot be the solution. She is not the problem. What the problem is for you is the reason that you are feeling the way that you are feeling, not even why you reacted the way you did. That's the source of the problem. And unless that is addressed and healed, you will continue to get frustrated, and maybe eventually you'll get over it with this person, but it will show up in your life through somebody else or some other situation. It has to. It can't stay. It's the law of nature. It's the law of creation. It's the law of humanity, of who we are and how we were created. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, absolutely.
There is some unresolved trauma, unresolved grieving inside of you, a scar of something that happened in your lifetime, either in your adult life or in your childhood life, that you may not even realize. It could be that it was passed down generational. Regardless of the source of where it is, until that is addressed, it will pop up somewhere else in your life as well.
All the time.
So that's where you need the healing in order to get resolved. That is why you are feeling the way you are feeling. It's not the actual situation that caused you to feel this way. It just happened to manifest itself now in that. But that's not really the source of your problem.
In other words, I have perfectionism that I feel like I'm not allowed to make a mistake.
Absolutely.
Was it really a mistake what I did?
I don't know. Maybe not even. But it comes, perfectionism in your case that you're referring to is coming from people pleasing, which is from the
Right.
same source. When somebody people pleases, it's because they don't feel secure and stable. And if they can't people please, then they don't know how they're going to function without it. They work together a lot of times.
Perfectionism and people pleasing.
Correct.
I had at the same time, my sister-in-law asked me for a favor, and I had a very hard time. Just her asking for a favor made me go overboard with all kinds of, didn't know what to do with myself because I wanted to say no, and I didn't know. Eventually, I said no. But I'm
Yeah.
saying
It was difficult, right?
I had to work through it a lot.
Yeah,
until
I hear that. Yeah. In my opinion, that's what's going on. That's what you have there. It's resolvable if you want. I'll give you the same to listen to the webinar from our program. We talk about those things, and it can be healed, but it needs to be addressed specifically. In other words, the only way to heal a problem is to get to a solution is to uncover the actual problem itself. So it's not your friend that is causing you this anguish. It may feel that way, but that's not what's really happening.
Your program does this?
Absolutely. 1,000,000%. And you can call the office and listen to a free webinar. We'll talk a little bit about certain ideas, just to find out a little bit more for yourself. Would you like that number?
Yeah, I took it down. I want to
Okay.
listen to the webinar. Yes.
Yeah, that's where to listen to the webinar. Yeah, absolutely. But that's what's going on. That's where the source of this question is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Talks to you, right?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for unmuting and asking a question.
I was very excited for this event tonight.
Oh, good. Are you still
Really
excited?
beautiful. Of course, really opened my mind a little. I was on this program for over a year, by the way, going back almost 2 years ago. A little less than 2 years. I was started with a boot camp. Then I went on to the goal weight program. I was up to the advanced, and I don't know why I dropped out. I mean, I do know, but as of now, I was very excited seeing this offer, and I'm really enjoying. Thank you.
Well, glad to have you back.
Yeah,
Don't be a stranger.
no, I'm not a stranger. I was so excited to hear your voice. It was so exciting to me because I
Oh,
really
that's
have to
beautiful.
get back to this work because it changed my life immensely.
We revised a little bit after the boot camp. We don't go right to go weight. We go to another part, and so it's very exciting. Also, what we've done.
Yeah, you changed. It was changed.
Yeah. Just recently, we go into Out of the Quicksand. I don't know if you're familiar with Out of the Quicksand.
Oh, I heard. So basically, Out of Quicksand was launched. Like when I started, like I was almost up to the advanced. I just felt I didn't do certain lessons. So
Well,
in-depth.
it's a
I wanted
special.
to
So we
review
revised.
and redo.
Right. We revised the Out of the Quicksand for people who come from boot camp. So there's a new Out of the Quicksand from boot camp. And then from there, we call it the goal weight Out of the Quicksand. And then from there, they go to Reaching for the Stars.
Oh, for the dance. I felt like at the end that my life changed so beautifully, but I was just afraid that I didn't do to perfection certain lessons, and I could still do it a little better, like re-listen and do the work and the workbook a little bit more. And I didn't want to skip anything. I didn't want to, but I don't know. It came to a certain point that I got engaged and I got married. I got busy with different life, so I just dropped. I didn't have the time for it. I didn't make time for it. Yeah. I'm up to here. I have a question that I had this since still when I was a girl. That anytime anyone snored or was breathing, it put me in a certain spot where I couldn't control myself. It was something in me. I wouldn't even call it that I became nervous. I would call it rather in a certain, like I couldn't breathe. I became out of breath. Like I wasn't myself. I was wondering now that I'm married, it's very hard because I'm not upset at myself because it's normal. It's a thing he can't help himself when he's sleeping. He can't control his snoring.
So your husband?
Not loud, not very loud. Baruch Hashem.
Okay.
So it's normal, and I'm not going to change him. And it's my issue. I was wondering how to deal with such an issue. I had it as a girl. I basically slept alone in a room. And I had music. If something, it wasn't noise. Noise is not the issue because I'm not such an anxious person. I could control myself, Baruch Hashem, but when it comes to just snoring, even I Baruch Hashem, I do wigs. So people could bring along, babies could sleep in a carriage when they snore. It really, gets me in a certain mode, which I don't know. Something I can't.
So the noise of snoring is something that affects you. Is that what you're saying? The sound of snoring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's very possible that something happened in your early childhood that affected you with that. Can you identify anything like that?
I can't recall. It's really hard for me to think of such a thing.
Okay. It's just possible that there was
Yeah.
some type of something that happened in your childhood that could be a form of PTSD of what you're referring to. It's possible or not. Doesn't have to be. Nonetheless, this is something that affects you, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said what's sometimes you have a child in the crib and it also you hear it?
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Okay.
any type of snoring, like just the sound. Like when someone's eating, yeah, it
Okay.
doesn't bother me. When someone's laughing, like, nothing bothers me. It's just the
Because
thick
there is
snoring.
a condition about certain sounds, people chewing. I forget what it's called. There's a name for it. It's
Where
a
they become nervous. It gets them. Yeah.
they're affected. I forget what it's called. A certain condition.
It's called misphonia, I think.
Thank you. Yes, that sounds familiar. Dysphonia. Okay. It's very possible that you have this condition about snoring, that you're affected by snoring. Okay. Obviously, the question is, what can you do about it? Number one.
You're aware of like how.
So the
how
number
to-
one is the awareness, right? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. The way to get past it, in my opinion, is through gratitude. And people say, what does gratitude have to do with this? The effectiveness
Oh,
when we
the
are,
anxiety. Yeah.
because whenever we're
Put you
affected
in
by
the
something,
mode.
we're in fear that either something is going to happen to us or we're not going to be able to function, or it reminds us of a situation or something. When we're in gratitude, we're in reality. When we're in reality, we become less affected by our surroundings. And in my opinion, that
Yeah,
is
it makes sense. Yeah.
so in my opinion, that is the work that needs to happen in order for you to get over this phobia.
Just make sure that I'm constantly in gratitude and I'm in.
I don't think it's
I
don't think it's humanly possible to be constantly in gratitude. However, through that work, you know the work, you started doing it.
Yeah, I know it really well. Yeah, it's mind blowing, this work. Yeah.
So you coming back? I hate to put you on the spot, but
I would love to. I would
Okay.
love to, but
Okay.
first I'm starting with this. First I'm coming back. to
Okay,
this.
beautiful.
I'm
So
really
you're
missing
already,
your voice.
so you're
So
already,
this is
so
a
you're
real,
already
this
back.
is a real treat.
So
Yeah,
you're
I'm
already
back. I'm
back.
back. I'm back. I'm there. Yeah.
There you go. It's a pleasure to
Yeah.
hear you. I don't know who you are, but I'm grateful that you trusted me to be a small part of your journey. I do believe that through doing that work again, this will subside. I'm not saying it's going to disappear totally, but it'll transform just like other things in your life.
Yeah, in my
Transform.
head, through that, because I already did the work and I saw my change. I saw my positive on reaction. I was totally different in so many, at work, in relationships, and weight. I didn't lose right away a lot of weight, but it helped me to slowly but surely lose, like, to get on a certain, like, control of myself that I never had and I
Amazing.
never felt. And I thank Hashem that I heard about it and I was part of it. And now that I'm so long not on it, I see the negative effect of just not doing certain the work. So
Right.
that's why I'm just running back. This
Well-
was amazing, my amazing thing that helped me out. So really want to come back.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Hashem.
Well-
Yeah, he created such a beautiful program, and yeah, we're looking forward. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
I'm
Beautiful.
really,
So
really looking forward. Yeah,
awesome. Thank you for coming back. It's good to hear you.
sure.
And we're still around. So,
Yeah,
and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I believe we answered almost everybody's question. We will be back again in 2 weeks. We do plan on continuing these Mindful Mondays on a consistent basis. This is the first one. We'd love to hear your feedback of any type. You can send it to us or you can respond to an email. We will be sending out an email. I'm not sure when, sometime this week. We'll let you know where the recording is. This is a recorded sessions that will be available on our YouTube channel. Please tell your friends and family. We will be hopefully, and then the other thing I wanted to add that, and I did mention this at the beginning, if there is a certain topic that you would like us to cover, to discuss, we'd love to hear about it. And if you know somebody who would like to, who is an expert on that specific topic, you can get us in touch with them. We do plan on having other experts on our Mindful Mondays and continue. So this was the first one. It was very exciting. So thank you for all of you who came and showed up, and wishing you a wonderful remainder of the day. Well, the day, it's already nighttime. But for those who are listening to the recording, they could be listening to it in the morning. So it is a day and a great week, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much. Have a good night.